Honorable Men Discord. Kevin waits. Let's talk about it. All right, welcome back to another episode. Thank you for joining in. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I appreciate you all. So let's get straight to it. So Kevin Gates, as we all know, and the episode I covered, disrespected Savannah James by speaking about her in an unfavorable fashion. LeBron responded via Twitter or Instagram and said basically, I'm paraphrasing, kings don't discuss or speak with peasants, referring to Kevin Gates as a peasant. I'm sorry, I said peasant. Kevin responded to that by basically saying, listen, I got love for you. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing personal. I got love for you. Right? And this is what Kevin had to say in response to the peasant comment. Let's get straight to that and I'll continue.
How y'all doing? You heard me? I'm on my way to have coffee. Coffee spelled backwards is E-fuck. And before we've had our coffee, we don't give E-fuck about anything. But I just want to say one thing. The truth hurts, but it heals. And Braun, I love you because you my nigga. And I already know she was just, you just gonna let him talk. Man, you had to, but behind closed doors, you, good game. But anyway, look, long as you being celebrated, I don't care who don't like me. Long as you being celebrated, that's all I care about. Because you my nigga and I love you. So I don't care if I got to fall out with somebody I love to get the results. We're going to get the results. But if anybody need, I'm a life coach and a guru. Y'all 24 hours. You smile. You smile at that black man. You smile at him. Hey, because you know one thing. Today is Easter. You know what come with Easter, huh? It got a lot of buddies hopping around out here. They about to take a trip on their favorite rocket ship. So they got some buddies on it. But nah, though, I love y'all. If anybody else need life coaching advice and things of that nature, y'all go to my, I got a text line at the top of my bio, you heard me? Sometimes the truth hurts, but it heals. I love you all. This is Kevin Gates, and me and Brittany will improve this message. I love this for me.
All right, so that was Kevin Gates' response on Easter to LeBron's tweet about kings don't basically have conversations with peasants. Now, the question that I have in all of this was, did Kevin Gates say what he said about Savannah knowing he was going to eventually go to game 2 of the NBA playoffs and sit front row? Was this calculated? Was he trying to bait LeBron? Or was he really concerned about LeBron's relationship with his wife? Not that I think he should be concerned with LeBron's relationship with his wife, but it just seems too much of a coincidence that he said what he said, got a response from LeBron, even though it wasn't a direct response, which I guess he was looking for a direct response. Like what's next? Does he have another album coming out? I don't know what's going on, but in any event, Kevin Gates, unknown to anyone until it actually happened, ended up in the front row of the Laker game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? And the thing about that brings us to my thumbnail, Kevin waits. I believe Kevin waited to see whether or not LeBron was going to give him the same treatment that LeBron gave Stephen A. Smith. So that brings us to today's episode. What does everyone think about that? Right? I had this discussion with my cousin, and he automatically, first of all, he's not a LeBron fan, so my choice in having the conversation with my cousin was a bad idea, because he immediately attacked LeBron and was like, all right, LeBron's, ussy. You fill in the blanks. He's like, well, LeBron's ussy. I said, why you got to be ussy? He's like, well, if you're going to approach Stephen A. Smith, you got to be consistent, right? And I said, yeah, but it's different. I said, for one, Stephen A. Smith is a commentator. And yes, he Stephen A. Smith, in his defense, is allowed to speak on sports because that's his job, to speak on sports. Uh, that's what he's paid to do, is speak on sports. But he has national coverage when he speaks on sports. So if Stephen A. Smith is speaking down on LeBron, his family, Bronny, whoever he's speaking down on, it has national coverage, national exposure. So of course, at some point in time, LeBron is going to want to address Stephen A. Smith. Furthermore, LeBron's issue with Stephen A. Smith is over a period of time. It's not like LeBron rushed out there and was emotional and ran up to Stephen A. Smith at the very first comment that he made about Bronny or about himself or about anything else. So it took some time before LeBron actually addressed Stephen A. Smith face to face. So my thing with those of you who may actually agree with my cousin and say, well, LeBron should have ran up on Kevin Gates whilst he was courtside with Brittany Renner. Again, Kevin Gates doesn't have the exposure that Stephen A. Smith has, doesn't have the reach that Stephen A. Smith has. Now, for those of you that might say, oh, you're a LeBron stan and you're just covering for him, LeBron's a softie. I ask you, what was LeBron supposed to do? Do the same thing? First of all, Kevin Gates, we're not talking, and no disrespect to Kevin Gates. Kevin Gates is not Drake. He's not Kendrick Lamar. He's not Future. He's not any of the big names you could think of, right? He has a name for himself. He's established a name for himself. He has a career, he's doing well for himself. But how many people actually know Kevin Gates like that, aside from the diehard rap fans? So for LeBron, you could say LeBron's being strategic. And also, for those of you who watched my episode on Alpha Male, where I reacted to the Vlad TV interview with Gilbert Arenas, even Gilbert Arenas said alpha males, they're not quick to just make a decision. They would actually make a decision based on the outcome. And he said that's the characteristic of an alpha male. And I don't know what you guys think about what Gilbert Arenas said, right? But basically what he's saying is what LeBron displayed. LeBron did not run out there and immediately address Kevin Gates. And as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, this is the first time I ever heard of something between Kevin Gates and LeBron. I don't believe I've ever heard Kevin Gates speaking on LeBron or Savannah before this. So again, the first time Kevin Gates says something, is LeBron supposed to approach Kevin Gates at the game? Is it one of those things where you may feel like he's supposed to because who knows when's the next time he's going to see Kevin Gates? I don't know. What's your thoughts on this? This is not about right or wrong in this. I'm just trying to understand different perspectives on how LeBron should have or could have addressed the situation. Do any of you feel as though, well, you went up to Stephen A. Smith, go up to Kevin Gates? Do you think it's cut and dry? Me personally, I don't think it's cut and dry. Why? Because, to be honest with you, again, the Stephen A. Smith situation is completely different. This is a commentator who's televised on a national scale. Kevin Gates, said what he said, even though it went viral. Kevin Gates said what he said on, I don't know what it was, whether or not it was IG Live or Facebook Live. That's not the same exposure as something said by Stephen A. Smith over a period of time. And when you think about it, LeBron, his whole entire career has been filled with scrutiny. At one point in time when he had left Cleveland to go to Miami, there was the Cleveland fans that were burning his jersey. And I'm bringing that up to say, if LeBron was to stand up and speak against anybody who has said some unfavorable things to him, he's going to be a miserable man not concentrating on the game of basketball. And again, this is the playoffs. And I'm not saying, the playoffs is more important than his wife. But what exactly would he be standing up for at this point? Is he going to go up to Kevin Gates? Because now, to be honest with you, the fact that Kevin Gates did this, it's almost as though Kevin Gates, by doing that, is trying to pull the strings of the king. And if LeBron is standing on what he said in the tweet about kings don't basically discuss things with peasants, I absolutely believe LeBron did the right thing by standing down, because if LeBron showed himself to be emotional by what Kevin Gates said, who again is not, I would say, nationally known, or he's definitely not as well known as Stephen A. Smith. If LeBron was to respond to Kevin Gates at the game, then that just opens up the floodgate for everybody to abuse LeBron. Think about fans of opposing teams. They're going to just shout out stuff to LeBron about Savannah in hopes that maybe LeBron comes up to them and potentially puts hands on them, so there's could be a lawsuit. It would just turn into just like, it would show no self-control. And for any of you that disagree with the fact that LeBron did not walk up to Kevin Gates, I just pulled up some things that I like to share, right? So first, we're going to start with those who are of faith, that follow faith, Christianity to be specific, right? So Matthew 5:38 to 39 teaches about turning the other cheek as a way of resisting evil and not retaliating, for personal insults. Instead of fighting back, the concept encourages forgiveness and submission to avoid escalating conflict. This principle is also found in Luke 6:29. And don't run away, because this is not turning into a sermon. I also wanted to share Sun Tzu, right, from The Art of War. It says Sun Tzu emphasized that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting, highlighting the importance of strategy and deception over direct confrontation. He believed that victory is not merely about winning battles, but about achieving overall objectives without resorting to prolonged or unnecessary warfare. Now, some of you might be listening to this and saying, well, what are you talking about? This is not warfare. That would have been a conversation with Kevin Gates. Perhaps it could have been a conversation with Kevin Gates, but we don't know how it would have turned out with Kevin Gates, right? We don't know. We don't know if LeBron would have said something that would have caused Kevin Gates to go back home now, or courtside say something on his social media, and then it would have turned into something that might have, escalated. We don't know. We could assume that it wouldn't, but many times when we assume, we turn out to be wrong, right? It goes on to say his teachings also stressed the importance of knowing oneself and one's enemy, anticipating their actions and exploiting their weaknesses. Right? It's a little bit lower. It says Sun Tzu's core philosophy is about achieving victory through the strategic advantage, manipulation, and deception rather than the brute force. I'm just going to end it there because I don't want to turn into a whole reading of Sun Tzu. But the reason why I brought that up is to say, one thing I could say is a fact within the black community. And I'm not going to go through different scenarios, different cases that we've lived through or we heard from our own history. One thing's for certain is that for some reason, and I also covered this when I spoke about the Standing on Business episode in regard to some black women. Same thing applies with the black men. And I did say in that episode I would discuss black men. We feel the need to stand on business, retaliate immediately on all things. We don't do, as Gilbert Arenas said in the Vlad interview reaction, about we don't do what Gilbert Arenas expressed is what alpha males do, which is to assess the situation before reacting. Right? We just react. So many of us most likely will be in the comments saying, well, he approached Stephen A. Smith, he has to approach Kevin Gates. Do for one, got to do for everyone. You got to be consistent. What kind of results would that lead to? We're talking about a billionaire in LeBron James. I believe he's a billionaire. right? We're talking about a billionaire that's on live television in the NBA Finals. Yes, Kevin Gates said some unfavorable things about his wife, but should LeBron be walking up to Kevin Gates to discuss what? What exactly is he going to discuss? Maybe he could have had a short conversation, said a few words, and ran off. That's possible. Yes, he could have possibly did that. I personally don't think that would have been out of the norm if he would have just passed by while playing. It could have been during a fast break or during like a point in time when he's playing on that side of the court. He could have just whispered something real quick, like got his little jab in. Perhaps he could have did that. I wouldn't have been against that at all. But to actually take time out the same way that he did with Stephen A. Smith, I don't agree with that. Why? Because now you're going to give Kevin Gates the energy that he wanted in the first place. You're going to have a photo op session. You're going to have people snapping photos of you talking to Kevin Gates. Then it's going to be a whole bunch of podcasters and people trying to find out what exactly did you say to Kevin Gates, and you're making him more relevant than he is. Again, no disrespect to Kevin Gates, but he's not nationally known like a Stephen A. Smith. And for those of you who are Kevin Gates fans, yes, he makes good music. I'm not saying he's horrible as an artist, but he's just not known like Stephen A. Smith. So now if LeBron would have took time out during a timeout to walk over to Kevin Gates, he's not only giving Kevin Gates exposure, he's giving Brittany Renner exposure. Because what if she says something to LeBron and then LeBron turns to her? Suddenly she's going viral also for having interaction with LeBron. You see what I'm saying? So the reason why I pulled up the Sun Tzu, be strategic. How do you know LeBron is not doing things behind the scene that's going to affect Kevin Gates' comments? I'm sorry, his pockets for making the comments. How do you know? We don't know that. Maybe he's being strategic. So my question to any of you watching this episode is, if you think LeBron should have just gone up to Kevin Gates as he did to Stephen A. Smith, are you following black customs, black community customs, or would you choose to go with Sun Tzu, or choose to go with what's written biblically about turning the other cheek? Again, Kevin waits, but he's going to be waiting a long time because it's clear LeBron is not going to entertain him as he mentioned in the comments in his tweet. LeBron is not thinking about Kevin Gates, or should I say Kevin waits, because it's playoff time and he has to remain focused. And I think Savannah knows that also, that it's important for him to maintain his focus. And she probably herself said, listen, who's that? I mean, I've heard of him, but you're going to respond to him, don't even bother. That's what he's looking for. Because had LeBron responded to Kevin Gates, I can only imagine other people would have just popped up and they would have just made a field day out of this. It would have been a domino effect. And again, what LeBron did that was good is he's moving on his own accord, as the alpha male does. You're not letting someone take you off of your square and then you have to react to them because they called you out. It doesn't work that way. LeBron chose on that given day to walk up to Stephen A. Smith because LeBron chose that. He's not going to allow someone to dictate how he moves. He's not going to, because of a comment a few days prior to game 2, now you see Kevin Gates game 2, you walk up to Kevin Gates, then he got you. He got you. You're easily moved at that point. But that's my thoughts on this whole entire situation. Hopefully Kevin Gates from this point on just stays silent and just keeps it going, and he worries about his relationship with Brittany Renner, and he leaves LeBron alone. But that's my take on all of this. What's your take? If you have a take, I'll see you in the comments. We can discuss it further. And as always, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you haven't, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.